All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak Wadash. Double honors to the elder apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations to the Akiman who pushing his gospel and truth and sincerity to the best of their ability, given to them by Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. This is Brother Quanah Watts from the Arizona Great Millstone Camp. Come back at you, Lord will, with the edifying lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Lord will, it is edifying. Lord will, it is straight to the point. And it's going to be a, exhortation, man, through the spirit, man. It was ultimately inspired by, a topic that we were touching on, yesterday at the sit down, right? The midweek sit down, right? Bros are ultimately going into, refinement, right? And how these sufferings and afflictions and chastisements, right, that we go through are ultimately, right, set to refine us, right? To ultimately purge us of that dross, right? And that dross, right, is ultimately, symbolic for, the different, worldly characteristics, right, that we ultimately built up, right, within ourselves as we were in the world, right? How about Shemel Shai is putting us through these different trials and tests, again, which are via, these chastisements, afflictions, sufferings that we deal with, right, to purge us of those characteristics, right, and allow us to, to, as the scripture saying, right, Colossians the 3rd chapter, put on therefore as the elect, which is ultimately, the characteristics, right, that the elect will be, displaying, right, in these times, man, right, ultimately leading them to salvation, right, leading them to do the things, right, that are pleasing unto Yahweh Shemi Shai, right, which will lead to deliverance, and that's a heavy and a very important, topic to go into, man, right, because just as we touch on, the different prophecies that are coming, and ultimately what what's going to take place, right, in the near future, right? Because as you read in Isaiah 42:9, right, the Lord said what, that I tell you, right, before they spring forth, right, I tell you of them, right? So Yahweh Shemel Shai has had his prophets out here, right, telling you these things, man, right, warning you, right, giving you the the inside scoop, if you will, right, the things to come. And it's that information, right, it doesn't paint a pretty picture, right? That's why they call us what, the prophets of doom, right? Because we go into the doom and the gloom, right? As we're reading, I think it's Ezekiel the 2nd chapter, right? The scriptures, right, are full of lamentations, mourning, and woe, But again, so, just as we talk about those things, right, we also go into exhortation, right? Because brothers go through it, man, and brothers are going through it. All across the globe, right? Those who truly believe in Yahweh Shemi Shai are in a period of refinement, right? And when you look at, the process of refinement, right? It's not a very easy, to deal with process as far as, the stone, right? The stone going through that refinement process is, constantly being put in the fire, right, and left there, right, at the hottest point, right, brought out, banged on, smashed, as well as even, scraped, which is ultimately, the position that we're in, right? Right, we are those lively stones that Yahweh Shemi Shai is ultimately refining, I think that's in Malachi. Let's go to that, which, brothers ultimately brought this out, in the scriptures. No. Is it 13? Refiner's fire. So I'm trying to find that precept. So just bear. Right, so it was Malachi, not Micah 3:3, right? It says, and he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, man. And I was watching a video which bros ultimately, spoke on it yesterday as well, about this video. And that, I don't know if it was the, specific video, or maybe it was another video that had the same audio, clip in it or whatnot. But basically it was this woman sitting there, she was a reporter, but, on her own personal time, she wanted to go, and talk to a silver refiner, right, to ultimately, see the process, and one thing that, that she asked, right, as she's sitting there watching the process, she saw that this, the refiner, right, was ultimately sitting there holding this piece of silver in the middle of the flame, which he stated that that's the, the hottest point, of the fire, right? When she asked, why do you just sit there, right? Because he has to hold it in the fire at the hottest point, And, again, there's times when, Yahweh Shem El Shai got us, in that fire, man, and the affliction and the trial and the test, right, that he's got us going through, man, it's tough, But again, right, the viewpoint is, right, that we have to look at these things, right, as something that's going to benefit us. Because again, as it's doing it's purging that dross, right, heating, because again, that metal can, to heat up to a certain temperature, right, and still retain its integrity. But other things such as dirt and other rocks and whatnot, other metals, right, they're attached to it, right, they don't have as high as, right, a melting point, right, so they melt quicker, faster than, and ultimately they're discarded, right, and right at that point, right, he takes it out and he does his thing, man. But even then, right, once you're coming out that fire and you're getting beat, it's still it's still a rough process, man, right? And Yahweh Shem El Shai is putting us through that situation, right, every day, right? It says, and he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, and he shall purify the sons of Levi and purge them as gold and silver, that they may offer unto Yahweh an offering in righteousness. That's right, man. To be better for Yahweh Shem El Shai, man. Yahweh Shem El Shai is putting us, in these situations, right? The Lord said, what? With great labor hath he formed it, man. Right? Meaning we're going to be going through all different types of situations, man. Right? But you have to continue to, meditate and remember that Yahweh Shem El Shai is doing it for your benefit, man. He's doing it for your benefit. Right? As we jump to, where's that, Hebrews 12 and right here. I'll start at verse 7. It says, Hebrews 12 and 7. It says, if ye endure chastening, right, which is, you getting your ass whooped, man, It could be for whatever you're doing. Sometimes the Lord will ultimately put you in a situation, right? And it feels like chastisement, but really it's a test. It says, which all the situations the Lord puts us in, we should view as a test, man. Are we gonna allow this situation, right, to break our faith, right? Which will is our key, our ticket to salvation. No, man, the situation ain't worth as much as salvation, man. So deal with that shit, really, just to speak, plainly, right? Being brutally honest, right? Deal with that shit, man. It says, Most High deals with you, right, as with sons, right? For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not, right? But if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons, right, man? And as we read in, Sirach, right, which your brother brought it out beautifully, right, one of the young bros, man, newer bros in the camp, he brought it out beautifully, man, last night at camp, man, Sirach 30 and verse 1, that a father will ultimately chastise his son, right, so that he may have joy of him in the end, right, roughly paraphrasing, man, So the Lord's putting us through these situations so that way we can be, again, good enough for Yahweh Shem El Shai, man. But again, at the end of the day, it's for our profit, right? Verse 9, it says, furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh, which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? Right? Because Yahweh Shem Shai is greater than our earthly fathers, man. Right? It says, verse 10 says, for they verily for a few days chastened us after their own pleasure, but he for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness, man. Right? It's for our profit, man. Right? That we go through these things, man. Right? And I had it pulled up in the beginning in Romans, the 8th chapter, and verse 28. It says what? It says, and we know that all things, right, work together for good to them that love the Most High, to them who are called according to his purpose. And that includes our trials and our tests, man. Right? Which come via, chastisements, afflictions, ailments, So, hey, shit, brain fog. I remember, the brother Yawana, man, for a minute, that brother was dealing with, a brain fog demon, man. And at one point it jumped on me too. Me and that brother, ultimately hit a fast, together, man. And, to get that, that spirit going, man. And, praying to Yahweh Shem Shai at the same time, right? Because scriptures say that, some spirits go not out, but by prayer and fasting, And Yahweh Shem Shai allowed us to, get rid of that demon, man, because it was getting harder to do lessons, It was getting harder to, to even think, man. Really, constantly forgetting shit, right? Because as the scriptures say, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, man. This is a spiritual battle that we're dealing with, man. The demons, as it says in 1 Peter 5:8, right? Satan walketh about seeking whom he may devour. So we got to be, on point. We can't let these situations that we go through, right, ultimately distract us or to disenchant us, right, from pushing forward, man. Because again, they're for our profit. We just brought it out, right? They're for our profit. It's not for us to be, destroyed. It's not for us to be, unless Yahweh Shem Shai, it's his will, right? Which Yahweh Shem Shai forbid, right? The Lord will it be his will that we make it to the end, right? As we pray, But we're not brought into this so that way we could just give up and go back into the world, man. The Lord Yahweh Shem Shai, right, wants to see us succeed. So again, right, to the mentality, right, walking in this ministry is understanding, right, that Yahweh Shem Shai is going to put us through many different trials and tribulations, man. Let's go to that. What is that? Acts 14:22. It says, confirming the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue in the faith, which is what we're doing. Right? We're exhorting you, saying, hey, continue to push, man. Continue to deal, right? Understand, right, what you need to understand, right? Let go of what you need to let go of, right? And continue to, watch and pray, right? It says, and that we must, through much tribulation, enter into the kingdom of the Most High. So, we're gonna be going through it, man. Scriptures also say that we're appointed unto sufferings, right? We're appointed unto sufferings, but again, it's all for, our consolation and salvation. And I'll grab this precept, man, and we'll get out of here. This is 2 Corinthians 1 and verse 5. It says, for as the sufferings of Hamashiach abound in us, right, so our consolation also aboundeth by Hamashiach, man. Right, because again, as we go through it, right, we meditate, right, on what Yahweh Shai said, right, and the elder Kassad, right, he brought it out last night at the sit down as well, man, and he says, that's one hell of a pep talk, where Yahweh Shai says, be of good cheer, right, for I have overcome the world, man, right, basically letting us know that, hey, if I can do it, you can do it, So we meditate on that, man, and that ultimately gives us the comfort, right? Because Yahweh Shai went through the worst of it, right? So as we continue to go through it, right, in his stead, right, in the flesh, right, we understand that, again, right, through Yahweh Shai, we can, we've already achieved the victory, Lord, will we be of the elect, man? So this is just a step in the right direction, really, right? Verse 6, it says, and whether we be afflicted, it is for your consolation and salvation, right? Which is effectual in the enduring of the same sufferings which we also suffer, or whether we be comforted, it is for your consolation and salvation. So, hey, whether we're high in the spirit, low in the spirit, right? We got brothers, ultimately comforting us, or we're, going through a hard, man. Maybe your brother's, coming at you, chastising you, for what you did, or maybe you're just going through shit in the world, man. Financial, demons. Hey, you got a mental demon attacking you, like I said, like the brain fog and shit, right? Because everything got a spirit to it, man. So you got to look at things in the spirit, right, in order to identify and understand, right, the situation that you're going through, and pray to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, right, that he give you the spiritual and physical strength to get through it, man. It's all for our building, man. It's all for our purification process, right, which we're going through right now. But that's all I really had, man. I just wanted to touch on that. It's been heavy on my spirit, man, all day. So Lord will was edifying. Lord will, straight to the point. I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak Wadash, double honor to the elder apostles, the other bishops of Great Millstone. Till next time, I say Shalom.